Have you ever woken up from a bizarre dream, a jumbled mess of images and emotions, and wondered what it all meant? What if your sleeping mind was actually trying to tell you something important, something your conscious mind is missing? What if understanding your dreams could unlock hidden truths about yourself, revealing insights into your deepest fears, desires, and motivations? For centuries, humans have been captivated by dreams, viewing them as everything from divine messages to glimpses into the future. Across cultures and throughout history, dreams have been seen as a mysterious portal into the unconscious mind, a realm of thoughts and feelings that lie hidden beneath the surface of our everyday awareness. And in the quest to understand this hidden realm, two figures stand out as pioneers: Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, both of whom revolutionized the way we think about dreams, even though their perspectives often sharply diverged. Their work has dramatically influenced the way we understand the human mind and continues to shape modern psychology. In this video, we'll embark on a fascinating journey into the world of dream interpretation, with Freud and Jung as our guides. We'll demystify their complex theories, breaking down their key concepts, and providing you with practical tools for understanding your own dreams. We'll also reveal where each theory falls short, highlighting their limitations and potential pitfalls. Ultimately, we'll explore how integrating these two contrasting perspectives can offer a more complete and nuanced picture of your unconscious, helping you to unlock a deeper understanding of yourself. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you might just start looking forward to falling asleep. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Dream interpretation can seem incredibly subjective, even a bit far-fetched. How can we be sure that our interpretations are accurate? Is it really possible to glean meaningful insights from these seemingly random nocturnal ramblings? It's important to acknowledge that dream interpretation is not a perfect science, and there is no single correct way to interpret a dream. However, understanding dream symbolism, while keeping the limits of generalizations in mind, can offer valuable insights into our thoughts, feelings, and motivations. The real key is to keep an open mind, embrace the ambiguity, and recognize the importance of individual interpretation. So, let's delve deeper and begin unpacking the world of dreams. As we continue to keep an open mind about dream interpretation, it's time to turn our attention to the man who truly revolutionized the field: Sigmund Freud. Before Freud, dreams were largely dismissed as random firings of the brain during sleep, or perhaps glimpses into a supernatural realm. But Freud dared to suggest that dreams were not random at all. Rather, they were meaningful expressions of our unconscious minds, a window into our deepest selves. This was a revolutionary idea, to say the least, and it laid the foundation for modern dream analysis, even though his specific theories have been challenged and expanded upon over time. His groundbreaking text, The Interpretation of Dreams, forever changed the way we understand the human mind. But what exactly did Freud propose, and why did it have such a profound impact? Now, let's delve deeper into Freud's concept of the unconscious mind. For Freud, the unconscious was not simply a storage space for forgotten memories. It was a dynamic, powerful reservoir of thoughts, feelings, and desires that are actively hidden from our conscious awareness. These unconscious forces, according to Freud, exert a tremendous influence on our behavior, our motivations, and our relationships. It's like an iceberg, with the conscious mind being the small tip visible above the water, and the unconscious mind being the vast, submerged portion that makes up the bulk of our psyche. So how does this relate to dreams? Freud believed that dreams provide a pathway to access this hidden realm, a way for repressed desires and unconscious conflicts to rise to the surface, albeit in a disguised form. But why disguise them at all? This brings us to Freud's assertion that dreams are primarily a form of wish fulfillment. According to this theory, Dreams allow us to satisfy unconscious desires that are unacceptable or unattainable in our waking lives. These desires, often rooted in childhood experiences and repressed urges, find an outlet in the dream world. But here's the twist. These desires don't appear in our dreams in their raw, undisguised form. Instead, they are transformed into what Freud called the manifest content of the dream as it appears to the dreamer. The true, hidden meaning, or the unconscious wish, is what Freud termed the latent content. Dreams, in a sense, are disguised to protect the dreamer from anxiety or guilt that might arise if those desires were to surface directly. Freud famously referred to dreams as the royal road to the unconscious. But what does this road look like in practice? Consider a dream about flying. A Freudian interpretation might see this as a wish for power, freedom, or even sexual gratification, disguised in the imagery of flight. But how can we decipher these hidden meanings? Let's now consider the concept of dream symbolism as a means of deciphering this hidden language. Freud believed that dreams are filled with symbols that represent our unconscious desires, conflicts, or experiences. Some of these symbols, he argued, have universal meanings, while others are specific to the individual dreamer's personal history and associations. For example, snakes, in Freudian terms, often represent the penis or repressed sexual desires. Houses can represent the body or self, while water may symbolize birth or the unconscious itself. Trains or tunnels, perhaps unsurprisingly, can represent sexual intercourse. As outlandish as these interpretations may seem to modern audiences, these were the interpretations that Freud believed to be self-evident. But here's the catch. Dream interpretation is not as simple as looking up symbols in a dictionary. It requires careful consideration of the individual's personal history, their emotional state, and the overall context of the dream. Not every symbol has one single interpretation, and meaning always depends on context. It's a bit like learning a new language. You need to understand the grammar, the vocabulary, and the cultural nuances to truly grasp the meaning. So, how does this work in practice? Let's explore a hypothetical dream scenario and apply Freudian dream analysis to it. Imagine a person dreaming of being chased through a dark forest. According to Freud, the forest itself could symbolize the unconscious mind, a place of hidden dangers and repressed fears. The act of being chased might represent the dreamer's anxieties or a feeling of being overwhelmed by life's challenges. The pursuer could symbolize a repressed desire, a fear of intimacy, or even a parental figure. By identifying these potential symbols and exploring their latent meanings, we can begin to uncover the unconscious wishes or conflicts that the dream might be expressing. Perhaps the dreamer is running from a responsibility they are trying to avoid, or perhaps they are afraid of confronting a difficult truth about themselves. Remember that Freudian analysis, at its core, always comes back to suppressed, often sexual desires. Does this mean that every dream about being chased is rooted in sexual repression? Not necessarily, but that's where Freud would often begin his exploration. But is this emphasis on sexuality a strength or a weakness of Freud's theory? This brings us to the impact, criticism, and ultimate limits of Freudian dream analysis. There's no denying the profound impact of Freud's dream theory on psychology, literature, and popular culture. He opened up a whole new way of thinking about the human mind, and his ideas continue to resonate today. However, Freud's work has also faced significant criticism. One of the main criticisms is the lack of empirical evidence to support his theories. Many of his concepts, such as the Oedipus complex and the death drive, are difficult to test scientifically. Another criticism is the overemphasis on sexuality, which some argue is a reflection of Freud's own biases and cultural context. Is it possible that Freud interpreted nearly every dream symbol as having a sexual meaning, even when other interpretations were possible? And how might modern psychology view the potential damage of interpreting childhood events as primarily traumatic sexual experiences? There are also questions about whether Freud's theories are universally applicable or culturally specific. Could the dream symbols and interpretations that were relevant in Victorian-era Vienna have the same meaning in a different culture or time period? It's also worth considering that Freud may have overemphasized sexual repression and the potential pathologizing effect that this may have had. If dreams are always about repressed desires, does that mean that everyone has something to be ashamed of? But here's the twist. While Freud provided a revolutionary framework for understanding dreams, his theories are not without their limitations. He focused primarily on personal, repressed desires, but what other forces might be at play in the dream world? This leads us to our upcoming exploration of Carl Jung's contrasting perspective on dream interpretation. Jung, a former student of Freud, ultimately diverged from his mentor, particularly regarding the nature of the unconscious and the role of sexuality. What if the unconscious mind is not just a repository of repressed desires, but also a source of wisdom, creativity, and spiritual insight? And what if dreams are not just about wish fulfillment, but also about personal growth, self-discovery, and the integration of the conscious and unconscious minds? Prepare yourself, because what we'll discover next is even more shocking. If Freud focused on personal, repressed desires, what other forces might be at play in the dream world? But here's the twist. While Freud was revolutionizing dream analysis with his focus on repressed desires, another brilliant mind was emerging, one who would both collaborate with and ultimately challenge Freud's core assumptions: Carl Jung. Jung, initially a close disciple of Freud, eventually broke away from Freudian psychoanalysis, charting his own unique course in the exploration of the human psyche. But what led to this split, and how did Jung's vision of dreams differ so profoundly from Freud's? Let's now turn our attention to the reasons behind this pivotal divergence. The primary reason for their split stemmed from Jung's disagreement with Freud's singular focus on sexuality as the driving force behind the unconscious. While Freud saw sexual repression as the root of most psychological conflicts, Jung believed that the unconscious was far broader, encompassing not only personal experiences, but also a collective, universal dimension. Jung saw Freud's theory as limiting, potentially overlooking other critical aspects of the human experience, which set the stage for a contrasting, more holistic approach. Did Jung's travels and interests in mysticism influence these views? Absolutely. Jung's exploration of different cultures and spiritual traditions led him to see the unconscious as a source of wisdom, creativity, and guidance, not just a repository of repressed desires. This brings us to Jung's groundbreaking concept of the collective unconscious. Imagine a vast, interconnected network of knowledge and symbols passed down through generations, a universal reservoir of inherited experiences, instincts, and archetypes shared by all humanity. This, in essence, is Jung's concept of the collective unconscious. How does this differ from Freud's focus on the personal unconscious? While Freud emphasized the individual's unique experiences and repressed desires, Jung believed that dreams connect us to a deeper, shared human experience, a source of wisdom and guidance that transcends our personal history. It's as if we are all plugged into a universal database of human knowledge, and our dreams are the interface through which we can access this information. Now, let's delve deeper into the building blocks of this collective unconscious. Archetypes. What are they, and how do they manifest in our dreams? Archetypes are universal, primordial patterns of behavior, thought, and imagery that reside in the collective unconscious. They are not fixed or literal representations, but rather dynamic forces that shape our experience, manifesting in dreams as recurring symbols, figures, and motifs. Think of them as the fundamental building blocks of the human psyche, the inherited blueprints that guide our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. For instance, there's the shadow, representing the repressed or unacceptable aspects of the personality. The anima animus, representing the feminine side of a man and the masculine side of a woman, respectively. The persona, representing the social mask or role we present to the world. And the self, representing the totality of the personality and the goal of individuation. But how do these archetypes influence our dreams? This leads us to the Jungian perspective on dream interpretation. How did Jung approach dream interpretation as a process of understanding the individual's unique journey towards wholeness and self-realization, a process he called individuation? Unlike Freud's focus on uncovering repressed desires, Jung saw dreams as more than just wish fulfillment. He believed that dreams offer guidance and insights into our life path, helping us to resolve conflicts, integrate different aspects of our personality, and ultimately achieve a greater sense of wholeness. Jung used a method called amplification, exploring dream symbols through association and cultural context to uncover their archetypal meanings. It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, each layer revealing a deeper level of meaning and understanding. But how does this work in practice? Let's revisit the hypothetical dream scenario from Section 9, a person dreaming of being chased through a dark forest. How would Jung approach the analysis of this dream, and what insights might he uncover? In a Jungian analysis, the forest might be seen as a symbol of the unconscious, a place of both danger and potential transformation. However, unlike Freud, Jung may consider the forest a maternal symbol, a place of rebirth, or an aspect of the shadow. The figure chasing the dreamer could represent the shadow's self, the repressed aspects of the personality that the dreamer is trying to avoid. But what if the dreamer were to turn and confront their pursuer? This act could symbolize the integration of the shadow, accepting and embracing the darker aspects of oneself. Ultimately, in Jung's view, the dream might reflect the dreamer's journey towards individuation, confronting their shadow self, or integrating their anima animus. But does this mean that Jungian dream analysis is without its limitations? This brings us to the impact, criticism, and limits of Jung's dream theory. There's no question about the profound impact of Jung's dream theory on psychology, spirituality, and the arts. His ideas have influenced countless writers, artists, and thinkers, and his concepts of the collective unconscious and archetypes have become deeply ingrained in our cultural consciousness. However, Jung's work has also faced its share of criticism. Some critics point to the abstractness of archetypes, the subjectivity of interpretation, and the lack of scientific testability. Are Jung's theories universally applicable, or are they culturally biased? And does the abstract nature of the theory make it difficult to disprove, potentially limiting its usefulness for those with specific psychological disorders? It's worth exploring how different individuals might interpret the same archetype, such as the shadow, in vastly different ways, leading to inconsistent results. But what if Freud and Jung's theories are not mutually exclusive? But here's a powerful idea. What if Freud and Jung's theories can be integrated to offer a more complete understanding of dreams? Could Freud's focus on personal unconscious desires be combined with Jung's emphasis on collective unconscious archetypes to provide a richer, more nuanced interpretation of dreams? Perhaps a balanced approach that considers both the personal and universal dimensions of dream symbolism could provide us with a more comprehensive toolkit for analyzing our dreams. The path is now clear, and it is time for us to consider both perspectives and how they can be combined. And here's where things get interesting. By integrating both Jung and Freud's perspectives, could we unlock a deeper understanding of ourselves and the human condition? Now, let's explore how we can bridge the divide between these two influential thinkers and create a more holistic approach to dream analysis. But here's the twist. By recognizing that neither Freud nor Jung holds the absolute key to dream interpretation, we can begin to synthesize their ideas, creating a richer, more insightful approach. Think of it as combining two powerful telescopes, each with its own unique lens, to get a clearer, more detailed view of the dream world. Is it possible that the limitations of one approach are often compensated by the strengths of the other? Absolutely. Freud's focus on personal history and repressed desires provides a crucial foundation, while Jung's exploration of archetypes and the collective unconscious adds depth and context. Integrating both theories will lead to a fuller, more personalized, and more accurate interpretation of the symbols within our dreams. Now, let's explore how to approach dream analysis by embracing this harmonious dissonance, acknowledging both the personal and universal influences that shape our dreams. Start by considering the dreamer's personal history, experiences, and relationships, as emphasized by Freud. Are there any recent events, unresolved conflicts, or recurring patterns in their waking life that might be influencing their dreams? Explore potential archetypal and symbolic meanings, as emphasized by Jung. What universal themes or figures resonate with the dream imagery? Could the dream be reflecting a deeper, more symbolic journey of self-discovery? Consider this step-by-step process for dream interpretation. First, record the dream in as much detail as possible, capturing all the images, emotions, and sensations. Next, identify key symbols and themes that stand out. Then, explore your personal associations with those symbols. What do they mean to you, based on your own experiences and memories? And finally, research potential archetypal meanings, consulting dream dictionaries or Jungian resources. Synthesize the personal and universal interpretations, looking for connections and patterns. Could this synthesis of personal and universal interpretations unlock the true meaning of our dreams? This leads us to the importance of intuition and self-reflection in the interpretation process. What does your gut tell you about the dream? What feelings does it evoke? Remember, the dreamer is the final authority on the meaning of their own dream. No one else can tell you what your dream truly means, because no one else has access to your unique inner world. Think about it. Are you the master of your dreams, or are they the master of you? As you explore your dreams, pay attention to the emotions they evoke. These feelings can provide valuable clues about the dream's underlying message. Ultimately, your intuition and self-reflection will guide you toward the most meaningful and relevant interpretation. Let's illustrate this integrated approach with a few case studies. First, imagine a dream of losing teeth. A Freudian interpretation might focus on anxiety about loss of power, castration anxiety, or repressed aggression. Perhaps the dreamer is feeling insecure about their appearance or abilities. A Jungian interpretation, on the other hand, might focus on transformation, letting go of old beliefs, or confronting mortality. Perhaps the dreamer is shedding an old identity or preparing for a new phase of life. By integrating both perspectives, we might see the dream as reflecting a fear of loss combined with a need for transformation. But what if this leads to transformation? Now, let's consider a dream of being naked in public. A Freudian interpretation might suggest exhibitionistic desires, feelings of shame, or vulnerability. Perhaps the dreamer is seeking attention or approval. A Jungian interpretation might focus on exposure of the persona, authenticity, or a desire for acceptance. Perhaps the dreamer is shedding their social mask and revealing their true self. Integrating both perspectives, we might see the dream as reflecting a conflict between the desire for attention and the fear of judgment. Think about it. Have you ever had such a dream? What did you think of it? Finally, consider a dream of a flood. A Freudian interpretation might point to overwhelming emotions, repressed trauma, or a desire for cleansing. A Jungian interpretation might see the unconscious overwhelming the conscious mind, a need for emotional release, or a transformative experience. By integrating both perspectives, we can see the dream as reflecting the overwhelming nature of repressed emotions and the potential for a transformative breakthrough. Show how the flood might show a repressed trauma, but that the need for emotional release can lead to something positive. How often do we interpret this as something scary or something cathartic? Could it be both? Of course, integrating Freud and Jung is not without its challenges. While this path offers a more comprehensive understanding of dreams and a greater appreciation for the complexity of the unconscious, increased self-awareness and personal growth, and a more balanced and nuanced approach to dream interpretation, we must acknowledge its limitations. There's the potential for subjective bias, the lack of scientific testability, the difficulty of reconciling conflicting interpretations, and the time and effort required for in-depth analysis. Despite these challenges, the benefits of integration often outweigh the limitations. But here's what most people miss. Dream interpretation is not an exact science, and there is no single correct interpretation. What is key? Individual interpretation. This brings us to the most profound insight of all. Despite the value of integrating Freud and Jung, dream interpretation remains a deeply personal and subjective process. This is where modern dream analysis shifts away from the approaches taken by both Freud and Jung. There is no single correct interpretation of a dream, and the most meaningful insights come from the dreamer's own associations, feelings, and intuition. But we're just scratching the surface. What we'll discover next is even more shocking. What if your personal experiences, cultural background, and current life circumstances all influence the meaning of your dreams? And how do we account for these factors in our interpretation? The answers to these questions and so much more are just ahead. But here's the catch. Even with this integrated Freudian-Jungian lens, dream interpretation isn't a paint-by-numbers exercise. It's not about finding the right answer in a dream dictionary or applying a pre-packaged formula. What most people overlook is that the ultimate meaning of a dream is profoundly personal, unique to the dreamer, and cannot be definitively extracted from any textbook. Is it possible that even Freud and Jung, in their meticulous pursuit of universal patterns, recognized the paramount importance of understanding the dreamer's individual world? Absolutely. Personal meaning must always be the final authority. Now, let's consider how personal experiences, cultural backgrounds, and current life circumstances act as filters through which dream symbols are shaped and understood. Think of it as a kaleidoscope, a swirling array of colored glass, constantly shifting and reforming to create unique patterns. Each turn of the kaleidoscope represents a different individual, and the light passing through the glass represents their unique experiences, beliefs, and emotions. This creates a unique landscape of individual meanings, making each dream a singular reflection of the dreamer's inner world. How can we possibly decipher such a complex and ever-changing picture without first understanding the artist and their medium? Put simply, understanding the dreamer and their situation is a prerequisite, not an afterthought, for meaningful interpretation. For example, imagine a dream featuring a snake. For someone who was bitten by a snake as a child, the snake might evoke intense fear, anxiety, and a sense of vulnerability. The dream could be a manifestation of unresolved trauma, a recurring nightmare triggered by the subconscious memory of that traumatic event. But now consider someone who grew up visiting the reptile house at the zoo, fascinated by the beauty and diversity of snakes. For that person, a snake in a dream might represent transformation, healing, or even wisdom. The dream could be a symbol of personal growth, a shedding of old skin to make way for a new identity. Let's delve deeper. What about water? For someone who nearly drowned as a child, water in a dream might symbolize terror, suffocation, and a loss of control. The dream could be a replay of that near-death experience, a subconscious reminder of their own mortality. Now, contrast that with someone who associates water with relaxation at the beach, the gentle rhythm of the waves, and the feeling of being cleansed and refreshed. For that person, water in a dream might represent peace, tranquility, and emotional healing. Perhaps the dream signifies a need for emotional release, a desire to escape the stresses of daily life and reconnect with their inner self. Consider one more, a house appearing in a dream. If you had a stable and happy home life as a child, the house may represent safety, security, and the comforts of family. But what if you experienced homelessness, abuse, or neglect? Then a house appearing in a dream could be a symbol of danger, instability, and the longing for a safe space. How can we accurately interpret the house without understanding the background of the dreamer? Do you see now how deeply personal these symbols can be? Moreover, cultural background significantly shapes the interpretation of archetypes. The shadow figure, a representation of our darker impulses and repressed emotions, may be viewed very differently in cultures that emphasize collectivism versus individualism. In a collectivist culture, where social harmony and conformity are highly valued, the shadow might represent a dangerous threat to the group, something to be suppressed and controlled at all costs. In an individualistic culture, where self-expression and authenticity are celebrated, the shadow might be seen as a source of creativity, power, and untapped potential. The meaning of animal symbols, such as owls or spiders, also varies dramatically across cultures, belief systems, and mythologies. An owl could represent wisdom, death, or trickery, depending on which culture you come from. What does that tell us? Current life circumstances also cast their long shadows upon our dreams. A student dreaming about exams during exam season is likely experiencing immediate stress and anxiety related to their academic performance. The dream is a direct reflection of their waking life concerns, a manifestation of their fears and pressures. A pregnant person dreaming about birth and babies is reflecting their anticipation and anxieties about parenthood. The dream is a way of processing their changing body, their growing responsibilities, and their hopes and fears for the future. A person experiencing financial struggles dreaming about being unable to find their wallet is a clear indicator of waking life anxieties seeping into the unconscious. The dream is a symbolic representation of their feelings of insecurity, powerlessness, and fear of losing control. The image in the dream is often directly tied to events happening in waking life. What conclusions can we draw? Therefore, considering these individual factors is not an optional add-on, but rather a prerequisite for meaningful dream interpretation. Without understanding the dreamer's personal history, cultural context, and current situation, any interpretation will be shallow, generic, and potentially misleading. Dream interpretation requires empathy, sensitivity, and an openness to understanding the individual's unique personal landscape. How can we ensure that we're not imposing our own biases and assumptions onto the dream, projecting our own experiences and beliefs onto the dreamer's inner world? What are some of the dangers of neglecting the subjective element in dream analysis? Could we inadvertently pathologize normal experiences, misinterpret symbolic language, or even cause harm by imposing our own interpretations? Does this mean that dreams are so personal and subjective that they are ultimately indecipherable, lost in a chaotic sea of individual experiences? Is there no hope for finding meaningful patterns, no way to navigate this complex landscape and still find valuable insights? Absolutely not. While the kaleidoscope of individual experiences adds a layer of complexity, it doesn't negate the possibility of understanding our dreams. Let's explore some proven methods for capturing and exploring our unique dream world, so we can find a deeper understanding. But does this mean we're doomed to wander aimlessly through the hall of mirrors that is our subconscious, forever chasing elusive reflections of meaning? Is it simply impossible to find consistent, decipherable, and personally relevant messages in our dreams? Absolutely not. Despite the intensely subjective nature of the dream landscape, it is entirely possible to identify recurring patterns and themes. These can become signposts, illuminating your unique inner world and offering invaluable insights into your waking life. Don't let anyone convince you that your dreams are random noise. Let's explore some proven practical techniques to unlock your personal dream language. While dream analysis is not an exact science, these methods, when applied with diligence and consistency, can yield remarkable results. Think of it as learning a new language. It requires dedicated study, consistent practice, and a willingness to immerse yourself in the culture of your subconscious. Are you ready to begin? There are 3 core techniques that work in synergy. First, the practice of consistent dream journaling acts as your primary method of data collection. Second, the exploration of emotional associations allows you to move beyond surface-level symbolism and tap into the rich emotional landscape of your dreams. And third, theme identification helps you to recognize recurring narratives and life situations reflected in your dreams, providing a broader context for understanding their meaning. Let's explore each of these in detail. Let's begin with dream journaling. Setting up a dream journal is a simple but powerful first step. You can use a physical notebook, a digital document on your computer or tablet, or even a voice recorder. The key is to choose a method that is convenient and accessible, so you're more likely to stick with it. Keep your chosen medium close to your bed so you don't even have to stand up in the morning. But here's the most crucial part. Record your dreams immediately upon waking. Before you even open your eyes, lie still and try to recall as much detail as possible. Don't worry about making sense of it yet. Just capture the raw images, emotions, and fragments of the story before they fade away. Why is recording immediately upon waking so important? Because dreams are notoriously ephemeral. The details can vanish within minutes, like sand slipping through your fingers. Our conscious mind quickly reasserts itself, pushing the dream experience into the background. But what specific prompts can you use to make your recordings as thorough as possible? Start with the date and a brief title that captures the essence of the dream. Then, list the key images that stand out to you, a specific location, a particular person, a striking object. Next, jot down the emotions you felt during the dream. Were you afraid, anxious, joyful, confused? Be as specific as possible. Finally, describe the overall feeling or atmosphere of the dream. Was it lighthearted, ominous, surreal, or melancholic? Consistent and thorough recording is essential for identifying patterns and unlocking the hidden meanings of your dreams. There are also techniques you can use to improve your dream recall in the first place. So how do you improve dream recall? Setting intentions before sleep can prime your mind to remember your dreams. Simply tell yourself, I will remember my dreams tonight. Practicing mindfulness throughout the day can increase your awareness of your inner world, making you more attuned to the subtle cues of your subconscious. Avoiding alcohol before bed can also improve dream recall, as alcohol can disrupt REM sleep, the stage of sleep when most dreaming occurs. Consistent dream journaling is critical for identifying patterns because it creates a detailed record of your subconscious activity. Over time, you'll start to notice recurring symbols, themes, and emotional patterns that provide valuable insights into your inner world. Let's move on to the next step, emotional association. Exploring the feelings associated with specific dream elements is essential. Don't jump to symbolic interpretations immediately. Instead, focus on the raw, visceral emotions evoked by each element in the dream. What personal feelings do you associate with a particular image or person? Consider, for example, how a dog in a dream might evoke feelings of loyalty, fear, or playfulness, depending on your personal experience. If you were attacked by a dog as a child, that same animal may evoke a feeling of dread. It is unlikely that you will feel loyalty. So how do you explore these emotional associations? Freewriting can be a powerful tool. Simply write down the dream element and then let your thoughts and feelings flow freely, without censoring yourself. Meditation can help you to connect with your emotions on a deeper level, allowing you to access feelings that might be hidden beneath the surface. Talking to a therapist can provide a safe and supportive space to explore your emotions and gain insights into their origins. How can emotional exploration reveal hidden connections to our waking life? Because it helps us to uncover the underlying emotional drivers that shape our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Theme identification allows you to recognize overarching narratives or recurring life situations reflected in your dreams, providing a broader context for understanding their meaning. Recurring dreams, symbols, or emotions often point to unresolved issues or ongoing life situations. Think about the common dream themes that people report: anxiety about performance, fear of failure, longing for connection. These themes often reflect underlying anxieties, fears, or desires that are present in our waking lives. So how do you identify personal themes? Reviewing your dream journals for recurring patterns is essential. Look for symbols, emotions, or situations that appear repeatedly. Reflecting on your current life circumstances can also provide clues. What are the major stressors, challenges, or opportunities you're currently facing? These are likely to be reflected in your dreams. What can recurring dream narratives tell us about our core beliefs and values? They can reveal hidden assumptions, unconscious biases, and deeply held beliefs that shape our perception of the world. These techniques may take time. The combination of dream journaling, emotional association, and theme identification may feel challenging or strange at first. Like learning any new skill, the beginning can be the hardest part, but it is important to keep moving forward and not to get discouraged. As you continue to explore your dream world, you'll find unique and personal meanings. But how do we avoid getting lost in the labyrinth of our own subjective interpretations, trapped in a hall of mirrors reflecting only our biases and assumptions? Even with these tools in place, is it possible to drift further from objective meaning? Let's now consider the role of outside interpretation and why it is so critical to finding meaning. We have explored dream journaling, emotional association, and theme identification, and hopefully you've already begun to integrate these practices into your life. But how do we avoid getting lost in the labyrinth of our own subjective interpretations, trapped in a hall of mirrors reflecting only our biases and assumptions? Even with these tools in place, is it possible to drift further from objective meaning? The answer, as with many things in the realm of psychology, is multifaceted. While your personal understanding of your dreams is paramount, there is immense value in seeking outside perspectives. Think about it. Our minds are masters of creating narratives that support our existing beliefs. Dreams, as products of our minds, can easily fall prey to this tendency. We might interpret a dream in a way that confirms what we already believe about ourselves, even if that interpretation is incomplete or inaccurate. Seeking external interpretation acts as a critical check and balance, offering perspectives we might have never considered on our own. It can expand self-awareness and overcome the limitations of our subjectivity, ultimately leading to a richer and more insightful understanding of our inner world. What this means is that dream interpretation, while intensely personal, can also be a collaborative effort. Others can often see things that are not apparent to us, much like a friend offering a fresh perspective on a problem you've been wrestling with for weeks. This doesn't diminish the importance of your own feelings, but it enhances it. There are three primary sources of external interpretation: trained therapists or counselors specializing in dream analysis, dream groups or sharing circles where individuals interpret each other's dreams, and dream dictionaries and online resources. Let's explore each of these, while keeping in mind the limitations that each can bring. Let's begin with therapists and counselors. A trained therapist specializing in dream analysis brings a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. They can help you uncover repressed memories or emotional blocks related to recurring dream symbols, something that might remain hidden if you were only analyzing your dreams on your own. Think about a client who consistently dreams of being trapped in a small room. On their own, they might interpret this as a general feeling of anxiety. A skilled therapist, however, might guide them to uncover a specific childhood memory of being locked in a closet, revealing a source of trauma that needs to be addressed. But it's not just about uncovering hidden memories. A therapist can also challenge your interpretations of a dream, identifying potential biases or assumptions that you might not be aware of. Consider a client who consistently dreams of failing an exam. They might automatically assume this reflects a fear of professional inadequacy. However, a therapist might point out that the client is currently going through a divorce and that the dream could be related to feelings of failure in their personal life. What's more, finding the right therapist is essential. Look for someone with appropriate training in dream analysis and a strong ethical foundation. A therapist should act as a guide, not a dictator, and should respect your own insights and feelings about your dreams. Next, let's consider dream groups or sharing circles. These groups offer a unique opportunity to explore your dreams in a safe and supportive environment. The power of a dream group lies in the diversity of perspectives. Members can offer alternative interpretations of dream symbols that you might not have considered, expanding your understanding of the dream's potential meanings. For example, imagine a dreamer who consistently dreams of being chased by a shadowy figure. They might interpret this as a general fear of the unknown. But a dream group member might suggest that the figure represents a specific person in their life, or perhaps a suppressed aspect of their own personality, their own shadow. In addition to offering new perspectives, dream groups can also help you identify recurring patterns or themes in your dreams. By listening to others interpret your dreams, you might start to notice connections between seemingly unrelated dreams, revealing underlying issues or concerns. Just be sure to establish a safe and supportive environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing and offering their interpretations without judgment. This is vital because without a safe setting, vulnerability becomes risk, and dream groups can be extremely vulnerable. Finally, let's discuss dream dictionaries and online resources. These can be valuable tools for exploring dream symbolism, especially when you're just starting out. A dream dictionary might suggest a possible archetypal meaning for a dream symbol that resonates with your experience. For instance, if you dream of a snake, a dream dictionary might point to its association with transformation, healing, or hidden dangers. But here's the twist: dream dictionaries should be used with caution. They provide general interpretations, but they can never fully capture the nuances of your individual experiences and emotional associations. The snake in your dream might not represent transformation at all. It might simply represent your fear of snakes. That's why it is important to always consider the personal context and emotional associations when interpreting dream symbols. Dream dictionaries should be seen as a starting point for exploration, not the final word on the meaning of your dreams. Furthermore, not all online resources are created equal. Be sure to evaluate the credibility and reliability of any website or dictionary you use. Look for sources that are based on established psychological theories and that avoid cookie-cutter interpretations that oversimplify the complexities of dream symbolism. Remember, the internet is full of misinformation, and dream interpretation is no exception. So, what are the benefits of incorporating external perspectives into your dream analysis? For one, it helps you to overcome subjective bias and blind spots, ensuring that you're not simply confirming your existing beliefs. It also gives you access to a wider range of interpretations and insights, enriching your understanding of dream symbolism. This collaborative effort to better understand the self can lead to a more nuanced and comprehensive understanding of your dreams, enhancing self-awareness and promoting personal growth. But here's the crucial part. Critical thinking and discernment are vital when evaluating external interpretations. How can we ensure that we are not simply replacing our own biases with those of others? How do we maintain our autonomy and avoid blindly accepting interpretations that don't resonate with our own experiences? This is critical because, while external interpretation can be invaluable, there's a danger in blindly accepting external interpretations without careful consideration. It's easy to fall into the trap of believing that someone else knows more about your dreams than you do, but this is simply not true. You are the ultimate authority on your own inner world. This leads us to a critical question. How do we determine which external sources are trustworthy and beneficial, and which ones should we avoid? Let's delve into some guidelines for navigating the world of external interpretations. We've established that seeking external perspectives can enrich our dream analysis, offering insights we might miss on our own. But here's the twist. Blindly accepting those interpretations can be just as detrimental as ignoring them altogether. Are we truly gaining self-knowledge, or are we simply outsourcing our understanding to someone else's biases? After all, not all sources of external interpretation are created equal. Some may be incredibly insightful, while others can be misleading, even harmful. The key lies in discernment, in developing the ability to critically evaluate the interpretations offered to us. Think about it. Surrendering your authority over your own dreams to someone else is like letting a stranger write your autobiography. They might capture some of the facts, but they'll inevitably miss the nuances, the emotional undercurrents, the deeply personal meanings that only you can truly grasp. This process of discernment isn't about rejecting external perspectives outright. Instead, it's about maintaining your autonomy, ensuring that you're using external interpretations to enhance your own understanding, not replace it. So, how do we navigate this complex landscape and identify trustworthy sources? Let's explore some core guidelines for discerning beneficial interpretations, so that you may get the most from the wisdom of others. Let's begin with source credibility. This involves assessing the qualifications, experience, and ethical standards of the interpreter. Would you trust a medical diagnosis from someone who isn't a doctor? The same principle applies to dream interpretation. Is the therapist or counselor licensed and experienced in dream analysis? Do they have a background in Freudian or Jungian psychology or another relevant field? Similarly, when considering dream groups, what is the experience of the facilitator? Are they trained in group dynamics and ethical communication? And when it comes to dream dictionaries or online resources, who is the author? Are they a recognized expert in the field, or just someone with a website and a collection of vague interpretations? This isn't about elitism. It's about ensuring that the information you're receiving is based on a solid foundation of knowledge and ethical practice. Now, let's delve into personal resonance. Does the interpretation feel correct? Does it align with your own feelings, experiences, and intuition? Dream interpretation is a deeply subjective process, and the most valuable interpretations are those that resonate with your inner world. If an interpretation feels forced, or if it contradicts your own understanding of the dream, it's probably not the right fit, even if the source is otherwise credible. Think about a time when someone offered you advice that just didn't sit right. You might not have been able to articulate why, but something felt off. The same principle applies to dream interpretation. Your intuition is a powerful tool, and it should be your guide. The ultimate goal is self-knowledge, so prioritize interpretations that illuminate your path instead of leading you further away from it. But here's a crucial consideration: bias awareness. Every interpreter, regardless of their qualifications or experience, has their own biases and agendas. A Freudian therapist, for example, may overemphasize sexual interpretations, while a Jungian analyst might focus on archetypes and the collective unconscious. Dream group members may project their own experiences and beliefs onto your dream. And online resources might be driven by commercial interests or ideological agendas. It's important to identify these potential biases and consider how they might be influencing the interpretation. Does the interpreter have a particular viewpoint that they're pushing? Are they trying to sell you something? Are they promoting a specific ideology? Being aware of these potential biases allows you to critically evaluate the interpretation and determine whether it's truly helpful or simply a reflection of the interpreter's own perspective. And finally, flexibility and openness are vital. A trustworthy interpreter will offer interpretations as possibilities, not definitive pronouncements. They'll be open to other viewpoints and willing to consider alternative explanations. They won't insist that their interpretation is the only correct one, and they'll encourage you to explore different possibilities. Consider a therapist who says, "This dream definitely means." That should be a red flag. A good interpreter will use phrases like, "This dream could mean," or "One possible interpretation is." This kind of flexibility signals that the interpreter is respecting your autonomy and acknowledging the subjective nature of dream interpretation. So, how can we apply these guidelines to different sources of external interpretation? Let's start with therapists and counselors. Before scheduling a session, research their credentials, experience, and areas of specialization. Check their licensing status and look for any history of complaints. During the session, pay attention to whether their interpretations resonate with your own feelings and experiences. Are they actively listening to you and considering your perspective, or are they simply imposing their own theories? And be aware of their theoretical orientation. Are they a staunch Freudian, a devoted Jungian, or do they take a more integrative approach? By carefully evaluating these factors, you can ensure that you're working with a therapist who is both qualified and aligned with your values. Now, what about dream groups? Before joining a group, inquire about the experience and expertise of the facilitator or members. What are their qualifications? Do they have any training in dream analysis or group dynamics? And more importantly, does the group foster a safe and supportive environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing and offering their interpretations without judgment? During group sessions, pay attention to whether the interpretations align with your own understanding of your dreams. Do they make sense to you? And be aware of potential group dynamics or biases that may influence interpretations. Is there a dominant member who controls the discussion? Does the group have a shared belief system that affects their interpretations? Are power dynamics influencing what's being said? Are members of the group trying to outdo one another with the perceived cleverness of their ideas? By carefully considering these factors, you can determine whether a dream group is a valuable resource or simply an echo chamber for pre-existing beliefs. And lastly, let's discuss dream dictionaries and online resources. Before relying on a dream dictionary, assess the credibility and reliability of the author or website. Are they experts in their field? Do they cite their sources? And do they offer a balanced perspective, or do they promote a specific viewpoint? When evaluating online interpretations, ask yourself whether they feel relevant and meaningful in the context of your own life. Do they seem too generic or cookie-cutter? Are they trying to sell you something or promote a specific ideology? And remember, dream dictionaries and online resources should never be the sole authority on the meaning of your dreams. They can be a helpful starting point, but they should always be used in conjunction with your own intuition and critical thinking. The implications of using these guidelines are profound. By critically evaluating external interpretations, you empower yourself to maintain autonomy and ownership of your dream interpretation process. You build trust in your own intuition and protect yourself against harmful or misleading interpretations. And you develop essential discernment skills that can be applied to all areas of your life. Developing these skills is essential for navigating the complex landscape of dream analysis and promoting self-awareness. How can we ensure that we are using external interpretations to enhance our own understanding rather than surrendering our authority to others? By being critical, informed, and above all, self-aware. But here's where things get really interesting. What happens when we take these dream interpretations too seriously, even with careful evaluation? What are the limitations of dream analysis in general? Is it possible to get lost in a labyrinth of symbols and metaphors, losing sight of the bigger picture? Let's now consider when it's best to ignore dream interpretation altogether. We've established the potential of dream interpretation as a powerful tool for self-discovery, a window into the hidden landscapes of our minds. But what if we're looking through the wrong end of the telescope? What if, instead of gaining clarity, we're only distorting the picture, creating more confusion and anxiety? It's time to acknowledge a potentially unsettling truth. Not every dream is a profound message waiting to be deciphered. Sometimes, a dream is just a dream, a random firing of neurons with no deeper significance. The question then becomes, are we truly benefiting from this analysis, or is there such a thing as too much introspection? And perhaps more importantly, when should we simply ignore our dreams? Sometimes, the healthiest course of action is to simply let a dream fade away, unexamined and unburdened by interpretation. This might seem counterintuitive, especially after all we've discussed. But clinging to every dream, desperately searching for meaning, can be a slippery slope, leading to obsessive thoughts and distorted perceptions. After all, how much of ourselves is too much? Are we meant to turn every stone in our mental garden? Let's consider 3 scenarios where dream interpretation should be approached with extreme caution, or even avoided altogether, so that you may better protect yourself. First, let's address traumatic dreams. These are the nightmares that replay horrific events, the dreams that leave you shaken and breathless, the ones that feel less like symbolic messages and more like vivid replays of past horrors. Analyzing these dreams can be akin to repeatedly picking at a wound, preventing it from healing and potentially causing further damage. Think about a combat veteran plagued by nightmares of war, each dream a brutal reminder of the trauma they endured. Forcing that veteran to analyze these dreams, to dissect every detail, could re-traumatize them, plunging them back into the emotional pain and suffering they're desperately trying to escape. This isn't about uncovering hidden wisdom. It's about re-experiencing the worst moments of their lives. Furthermore, attempting to impose an interpretation on a traumatic dream can lead to the creation of false memories or distorted perceptions of the original event. How many people have been accused of crimes based on traumatic events that could have been misremembered in dreams? Instead of diving headfirst into the abyss of traumatic dreams, it's often more beneficial to seek professional therapy and focus on coping mechanisms that promote healing and emotional regulation, such as relaxation techniques or grounding exercises. Now, let's consider obsessive analysis. This is when dream interpretation becomes a compulsive behavior, a relentless pursuit of meaning that consumes your thoughts and interferes with your daily life. It's the equivalent of constantly checking your phone for notifications, even when you know there's nothing new, the constant need to find something, anything, to analyze. What starts as a quest for self-knowledge can quickly morph into a thought-stopping behavior, a way to avoid dealing with real-world problems by getting lost in a labyrinth of symbols and metaphors. How many people are ignoring obvious issues in their lives in favor of analyzing dreams? Obsessively analyzing dreams can also lead to a distorted sense of reality, an over-reliance on symbolic interpretations that overshadow your own feelings and experiences. This can also lead to magical thinking, the belief that your thoughts or dreams can directly influence external events. If you dream of winning the lottery, does that mean it's guaranteed to happen? When dream interpretation starts to feel like a compulsion, it's time to step back and re-evaluate your approach. Setting limits on dream analysis, practicing mindfulness, and seeking cognitive behavioral therapy can be effective strategies for managing obsessive thoughts and behaviors. But here's a more insidious scenario: forcing interpretations. This is when you're not genuinely seeking understanding, but rather trying to force a specific interpretation onto a dream to fit a pre-existing agenda. It's like trying to jam a square peg into a round hole, distorting the dream to confirm your biases or justify your actions. For example, imagine someone who is attracted to a person they know they shouldn't be with, perhaps a friend's partner or a colleague in a position of authority. They might have a dream in which they are romantically involved with this person, and then use that dream as justification for pursuing the relationship in real life. It was meant to be, they might say. My subconscious is telling me that we belong together. This is not self-discovery, it's self-deception, a way to rationalize destructive behavior and evade responsibility. The subconscious is meant to be a place for self-exploration, but if misused, it can be used as a weapon. What happens when one loses self-trust and favors dreams over their own inner voices? Approaching dream interpretation with an open mind, allowing for multiple possibilities, and respecting your own feelings and experiences are essential for avoiding the trap of forced interpretations. These scenarios highlight a crucial point. Dreams are not always accurate or reliable sources of information. They should not be used to make important life decisions or to justify harmful behaviors. Prioritizing your mental health and well-being should always take precedence over the pursuit of dream interpretation. Developing a healthy skepticism towards dream analysis is essential for maintaining a balanced perspective, and it may lead you to avoid pitfalls and misinterpretations. Forcing dream analysis can have the opposite effect of its intention, leading to confusion, anxiety, and even self-deception. How can we strike a balance between exploring the potential insights of our dreams and avoiding the pitfalls of overinterpretation? By being mindful, discerning, and above all, prioritizing our mental and emotional well-being. However, understanding the self goes far beyond dream analysis. What are some alternative approaches to understanding the unconscious mind that do not rely on dream interpretation? Perhaps the answer lies in a different method. In the next section, we will pull back the curtain and explore how mindfulness, meditation, and even creative expression can unlock the secrets hidden within, offering a path to self-discovery that transcends the need to dissect every dream. The truth is closer than you think. Let's now consider other ways to understand the self outside of dream analysis. We've explored the complexities of dream interpretation, including when it might be best to simply let a dream go unexamined. But what happens when we believe a dream warrants exploration, yet it remains stubbornly resistant to revealing its meaning, almost as if speaking a language we cannot understand? The truth is that dream analysis, for all its potential, is a highly subjective endeavor, deeply shaped by our individual experiences. This raises a critical question. How do we adapt dream analysis techniques for those whose experiences fall outside the norm, for those whose lives have painted their dreams with unique colors and unfamiliar symbols? Could the standard dream dictionaries and online resources, so often touted as keys to unlocking our subconscious, actually lack value for these individuals? Diverse life experiences, whether stemming from sensory impairments, the heavy weight of trauma, immersion in virtual environments, or the stark reality of isolated upbringings, can profoundly impact the very fabric of our dreams. Consider that our dreams are, in essence, a reflection of how we perceive and interact with the world. This leads us to the concept of experience-dependent dream symbolism, where the meaning of symbols is inextricably linked to an individual's unique way of perceiving and navigating their reality. Think of it like calibrating a scientific instrument. We must adjust our interpretive lens to align with the specific characteristics of the individual's life. What this means is a more nuanced approach, one that goes beyond generic interpretations and seeks to understand the personal language of the dreamer. Isn't it possible that a one-size-fits-all approach to dream interpretation could be doing more harm than good, especially for those whose experiences deviate significantly from the mainstream? For instance, consider the dream world of a blind person. While sighted individuals often rely heavily on visual imagery in their dreams, a blind person's dreams may be dominated by auditory, tactile, or olfactory sensations. Visual symbols might be less prominent, replaced by a heightened awareness of sounds, textures, and smells. Think of dreams where navigation occurs not through sight, but through a form of echolocation, a symphony of clicks and echoes painting a sonic landscape. What if, instead of seeing a house, a blind person dreams of feeling the rough texture of its walls, hearing the creak of its floorboards, and smelling the familiar scent of its inhabitants? Similarly, dreams of a deaf person may be more focused on tactile or visual sensations, with little to no auditory content. Instead of hearing music, they might dream of feeling the vibrations of a drum against their skin, or seeing the graceful movements of a dancer. How much of traditional dream interpretation overlooks these profound sensory shifts, thereby missing the true essence of the dream's message? Trauma, too, leaves an indelible mark on our dreams. A person grappling with PTSD may experience recurring nightmares that directly replay traumatic events, vivid replays that shatter the illusion of sleep and thrust them back into the heart of their pain. Or they might experience symbolic dreams, where anxieties and fears are represented in metaphorical forms, a monster lurking in the shadows or a relentless pursuer. These dreams demand a particularly sensitive and trauma-informed approach to interpretation. Could a Freudian interpretation, focused solely on repressed desires, potentially re-traumatize someone by overlooking the deeper wounds and anxieties encoded within their dreams? What if interpreting such dreams without the proper training and sensitivity could lead to further emotional distress and a worsening of the individual's condition? Now, let's consider the increasingly relevant case of individuals immersed in highly immersive virtual environments. Frequent users of virtual reality may find themselves dreaming of navigating virtual landscapes, interacting with digital avatars, or experiencing simulated events that blur the lines between reality and simulation. Imagine dreaming of flying through a digital cityscape, engaging in epic battles with virtual opponents, or forming intimate relationships with AI companions. These virtual reality dreams introduce unique symbolic elements related to technology, identity, and the very nature of reality itself, challenging traditional dream symbolism and opening up new avenues for interpretation. How does one interpret the meaning of a digital avatar, a symbol that exists only within the confines of a virtual world? Does the fear of being deplatformed carry the same weight as the fear of social ostracism in the real world? How can the ever-evolving landscape of virtual reality further challenge traditional dream symbolism? Finally, consider the plight of individuals raised in extremely isolated environments, whether in remote communities cut off from the outside world, or within the confines of abusive households, where social interaction is severely restricted. These individuals may have dreams with limited social interaction or distorted perceptions of social norms. Their dreams might reflect a longing for connection, a deep-seated fear of the outside world, or skewed understandings of social dynamics. Think of dreams populated by empty landscapes, faceless figures, or oppressive authority figures, all reflecting the emotional and social deprivations experienced in their waking lives. Are we equipped to interpret dreams that stem from such limited and often traumatic experiences, dreams where the very fabric of reality is warped by isolation and abuse? How can we ensure that dream interpretation becomes a tool for healing and empowerment, rather than a source of further alienation and misunderstanding? The implications of experience-dependent dream symbolism are profound. It's clear that standard dream dictionaries or online resources, which often rely on universal archetypes and common cultural symbols, may be of limited value for individuals with unique life experiences. Instead, a therapist or dream interpreter must take a detailed history of the individual's life experiences, sensory perceptions, and emotional landscape. How can a practitioner best understand the unique experiential landscape of another person, stepping into their shoes to gain insight into their dream world? Understanding these unique elements is required to effectively calibrate the analysis. Ultimately, tailored dream interpretation can provide invaluable insights into an individual's unique challenges, coping mechanisms, and potential for growth. It can illuminate hidden strengths, identify unmet needs, and offer a path towards greater self-understanding and emotional well-being. But it begs the question, how do we proceed when we've considered all these factors, tailored our approach, and yet the dream still remains an enigma? Even with tailored approaches, some dreams may remain elusive, stubbornly resistant to interpretation, or simply weird. What happens when a dream refuses to yield its secrets, when the images and narratives defy logic and coherence? And what does it mean when a dream is just nonsense? In the next section, we'll step into the realm of nonsense dreams, absurd imagery, and the acceptance of the unexplainable in the dream world. Let's consider the space for nonsense in dream analysis and what it can tell us about the nature of the unconscious itself. Even with tailored approaches, some dreams may remain elusive, stubbornly resistant to interpretation, or simply weird. What happens when a dream refuses to yield its secrets, when the images and narratives defy logic and coherence? And what does it mean when a dream is just nonsense? It can be frustrating to put in the hard work of dream journaling and introspection, only to have your unconscious deliver something that feels like complete gibberish. Perhaps you're beginning to wonder if this whole endeavor is a waste of time, especially when you encounter the truly bizarre. But before you throw in the towel, let's consider whether these baffling, seemingly meaningless dreams might actually hold a hidden value, even if it's not the kind we initially expect. Let's talk about nonsense dreams, or absurd dreams, those strange nocturnal narratives characterized by illogical scenarios, bizarre imagery, disjointed plots, and a pervasive sense of, well, nonsense. Think of dreams where the laws of physics are gleefully ignored, where identities shift without warning, and where the very fabric of reality seems to unravel before your eyes. These dreams often defy any attempt at logical analysis, leaving you scratching your head and wondering if your brain simply decided to take a vacation from making sense. And while our initial reaction might be to dismiss them as meaningless, could there be more to these bizarre nocturnal excursions than meets the eye? Is it possible that even the most nonsensical dream serves a purpose, even if that purpose isn't immediately apparent? Let me paint a few pictures for you. Imagine attending a formal dinner party, but everyone is wearing elaborate animal masks and communicating in a language you don't recognize, a jumble of nonsensical sounds and gestures. Or picture yourself flying through the vast expanse of space on a giant slice of pepperoni pizza, desperately trying to outrun an army of singing vegetables wielding kitchen utensils. Perhaps you find yourself engaged in a profound conversation with a talking teapot, which dispenses cryptic advice that sounds profound but makes absolutely no sense upon waking. What about finding yourself back in a familiar classroom, only to discover that all the students have been replaced by inanimate objects like chairs, lamps, and staplers, each seemingly judging your every move? Or perhaps you're wandering through a city where buildings are suspended upside down, defying gravity and logic, or exploring a forest made entirely of shimmering, fragile glass. And what about the ultimate nightmare fuel, being relentlessly pursued by an unknown entity, an amorphous blob of pure dread that has no discernible form or motivation, yet inspires primal terror? Don't these feel fundamentally different from the kind of dreams Freud or Jung might analyze? So, what are we to make of these bizarre, illogical journeys into the absurd? One perspective, often favored by the scientific community, suggests that these dreams may simply be the result of random neural firings in the brain during sleep, a sort of biological static with no underlying psychological significance. Perhaps the brain is just running a diagnostic test, firing off neurons at random to ensure that all systems are functioning properly. But is it really that simple? Could it be that even random brain activity can sometimes stumble upon meaningful patterns, like a broken clock being right twice a day? Another possibility is that nonsense dreams are a way for the brain to process complex or overwhelming emotions in a non-linear, symbolic way. Perhaps these dreams aren't about the literal images we see, but about the emotional reactions they evoke within us. Think about it. A dream about being chased by an unknown entity might not be about any specific threat, but about the feeling of anxiety and uncertainty that pervades our waking lives. Perhaps the true value of nonsense dreams lies not in what they mean, but in what they do. These dreams can be a playground for the imagination, a space where the mind is freed from the constraints of logic and reason, allowing for the exploration of new ideas and possibilities. Think about it. When was the last time you allowed yourself to think completely outside the box, to embrace the illogical and the absurd? Nonsense dreams can be a reminder that not everything needs to make sense, that sometimes it's okay to simply revel in the strangeness and wonder of existence. What if embracing the absurdity of our dreams could actually foster creativity and innovation in our waking lives? Finally, perhaps embracing the absurdity of some dreams can cultivate a sense of acceptance for the unknown and unexplainable aspects of life. After all, life itself is full of uncertainties, contradictions, and things that simply don't make sense. Learning to be comfortable with the lack of control in a dream can translate to a greater sense of resilience and adaptability in the face of life's challenges. By accepting that not everything needs to be understood, we can free ourselves from the constant need for control and certainty, allowing us to navigate the world with greater ease and grace. But if we can't always decipher the meaning of our dreams, if some dreams are just random firings or exercises in creative thinking, does that mean dream analysis is ultimately futile? Does the existence of nonsense dreams invalidate the insights that Freud and Jung offered, or does it simply highlight the limitations of any interpretive framework? Let's zoom out to the big picture and understand the value in dream analysis as a whole, even when the individual pieces don't seem to fit. Let's consider the forest, and not just the trees. As we explored in the previous section, dream interpretation isn't always about finding neat, definitive answers. In fact, sometimes it's downright difficult, leaving us with more questions than answers. So if we can't always decipher the precise meaning of our dreams, does that mean engaging with them is ultimately a futile exercise? Are we simply chasing shadows, or is there inherent value in the act of dream analysis itself, regardless of whether we fully crack the code? Let's consider the concept of dream work. Dream work is more than just deciphering hidden messages. It's the active process of recording, reflecting upon, and exploring your dreams, regardless of whether you arrive at a crystal-clear interpretation. Think of it as tending a garden. The goal isn't always to produce a perfect bloom, but to nurture the soil, water the plants, and observe the unfolding process. Similarly, dream work cultivates self-awareness, encourages emotional processing, and fosters creativity. Even if the dream content itself remains puzzling, you may find yourself with a deeper understanding of your emotions and your underlying motivations. The engagement, the work, is what allows the viewer to achieve deeper understanding, not the conclusion. How can dream work, even without definitive interpretations, lead to positive outcomes? Consider the power of increased self-awareness. Consistently recording your dreams can reveal recurring themes, emotional patterns, and personal symbolism that might otherwise remain hidden. Have you ever noticed a recurring symbol in your dreams, a familiar face, a particular landscape? This can expose underlying patterns of anxiety or depression that you may have been unaware of in your waking life. Reflecting on dream imagery can also prompt deeper self-reflection, leading to a greater understanding of your thoughts, feelings, and motivations, even if the dream's ultimate meaning remains elusive. Imagine consistently dreaming of being trapped. Even without knowing exactly why, the consistent journaling may expose a feeling of being trapped or caged that is present in waking life. Enhanced emotional processing is another key benefit. Even nonsensical dreams can provide a safe space to process complex or overwhelming emotions. Exploring the feelings associated with dream elements, the fear, the joy, the sorrow, can lead to emotional release and a greater sense of emotional regulation. Think about how your dreams might be processing emotions that you are actively repressing in waking life. Furthermore, paying attention to the creative aspects of your dreams can unlock new potential. The removal of restrictions helps to foster unique ideas in waking life. Embracing the absurd and illogical elements of dreams can stimulate creativity, problem-solving, and out-of-the-box thinking. What are the broader benefits of engaging in dream work, beyond the pursuit of definitive interpretations? The process itself cultivates a deeper connection to your inner world, even if you don't always reach a definitive interpretation. It builds self-knowledge, enhances emotional intelligence, and fosters creativity. Perhaps most importantly, the benefits of dream work can extend far beyond the realm of sleep, positively impacting your waking life experiences. The habits that you build in your engagement with dreams, the journaling, the reflecting, can lead to improvements in emotional intelligence, relationships, and your performance in waking life. So, how can we reframe our approach to dream analysis to prioritize the process of self-discovery over the pressure to find definitive answers? Perhaps it's time to challenge the notion that engaging with your dreams is only valuable if it leads to clear-cut interpretations. Think about it, isn't the journey often more important than the destination? Of course, engaging with our dreams requires vulnerability and a willingness to confront uncomfortable emotions or hidden aspects of ourselves. It's not always a walk in the park. This begs the question, how do we navigate the darker, more challenging aspects of our dreams, and what can we do when our dreams become frightening or disturbing? Let's explore the concept of shadow work in dreams. Let's look at dream analysis' darker side. While engaging with our dreams can be incredibly valuable, it's important to acknowledge that not all dreams are pleasant or uplifting. In fact, our dreams often confront us with uncomfortable truths about ourselves, our fears, and the hidden aspects of our personality, what Jung referred to as the shadow. We may naturally want to avoid unpleasant dreams, to push them away and pretend they didn't happen. But what if those dreams hold vital keys to our personal growth and wholeness? How do we navigate the darker, more challenging aspects of our dreams, the ones that make us squirm and want to hide? This is where the concept of shadow work comes into play. Shadow work, in the context of dream analysis, involves acknowledging, exploring, and integrating the repressed, disowned, or unacceptable aspects of ourselves. These aspects often manifest in our dreams as negative figures, disturbing imagery, or unsettling emotions. From a Freudian perspective, the shadow might represent repressed desires or traumatic experiences that we've pushed into the unconscious. From a Jungian perspective, the shadow is a universal archetype representing the darker side of the personality, the aspects of ourselves that we deny or reject. But regardless of the theoretical framework, the underlying principle remains the same. Confronting our shadow elements is essential for achieving psychological wholeness. How do these shadow elements manifest in our dreams? Let's consider a few examples. You might dream of being pursued or threatened by a shadowy figure, which could represent repressed anger, aggression, or unresolved trauma. How does this shadowy figure manifest? Is it a monster, a stranger, or perhaps even a distorted version of yourself? Or perhaps you dream of interacting with a cruel, selfish, or dishonest character who seems to embody disowned aspects of your own personality. Is this character familiar in some way? Do they remind you of someone you know, or perhaps even someone you used to be? Disturbing imagery is another common manifestation of the shadow. You might dream of decaying landscapes, grotesque monsters, or violent scenes, all representing repressed fears, anxieties, or destructive impulses. How are your five senses activated in these landscapes? What do you see, hear, smell, taste, and feel? Or perhaps you dream of broken objects, damaged bodies, or other symbols of imperfection and vulnerability, representing a fear of inadequacy or a longing for wholeness. Do you recognize anything about the imagery? Does it evoke a sense of familiarity or resonance? Unsettling emotions can also point to shadow elements. You might experience intense feelings of fear, guilt, shame, or anger in a dream, even if the specific content is unclear. How did you react to these emotions in the dream? Did you try to run away, fight back, or simply succumb to the feeling? Or perhaps you feel a sense of unease, dread, or hopelessness in a dream, even if there is no apparent threat or danger. How can you track these feelings back to something in your waking life? What situations or relationships trigger similar emotions? What are the potential benefits of engaging in shadow work through dream analysis? Confronting these shadow elements can lead to greater self-acceptance, integration, and wholeness. It can help you understand and manage your negative emotions, destructive impulses, and self-sabotaging behaviors. Embracing your shadow can also unlock hidden potential, creativity, and authenticity. Think about it. Our greatest strengths often arise from integrating our darkest aspects. How can we reframe our approach to dream analysis to embrace the challenges of shadow work and unlock the potential for personal growth? What specific aspects of your shadow can you reflect on and explore? But it's also important to know when to stop. What's the line between shadow work and traumatic recall? While shadow work can be transformative, it's not always easy or safe to navigate the darker aspects of our dreams alone. When should we seek professional support in dealing with disturbing or traumatic dreams, and what are the signs that we may need help? Let's discuss the limitations of dream analysis and when to seek out support. While dream analysis can be a valuable tool for self-discovery, it's essential to recognize its limitations and know when to seek professional support. Not all dreams are easily interpreted, and some dreams can be actively harmful to engage with. Consider this. When should we seek professional support in dealing with disturbing or traumatic dreams, and what are the signs that we may need help? The key is to be responsible with dream analysis. There are several key indicators that suggest professional support may be beneficial or even necessary. Recurring nightmares, persistent, disturbing dreams that cause significant distress, disrupt sleep, and interfere with daily functioning, is one major sign. Trauma-related dreams, dreams directly related to past traumatic events that trigger intense emotional reactions, flashbacks, or re-experiencing symptoms, is another. Overwhelming emotions, dreams that evoke intense feelings of fear, anxiety, depression, or anger that are difficult to manage or process, should also be noted. Dissociation or derealization, experiencing a sense of detachment from reality or oneself during or after a dream, feeling as if the dream is too real or blurring the lines between waking and dreaming, can be another indicator. Finally, obsessive dream analysis, becoming preoccupied with dream interpretation, spending excessive time analyzing dreams, or feeling unable to stop thinking about them, can also indicate the need for professional help. This often includes a sense of magical thinking, where you feel a sense of control over events through dream analysis. How can these indicators manifest and negatively impact an individual's well-being? Recurring nightmares can lead to chronic sleep deprivation, fatigue, impaired concentration, and a decreased quality of life. Imagine the toll that constant, terrifying dreams can take on your mental and physical health. Trauma-related dreams can trigger flashbacks, panic attacks, and avoidance behaviors, hindering the healing process. Exploring these dreams alone may trigger a traumatic response. Overwhelming emotions in dreams can spill over into waking life, affecting relationships, work performance, and overall mood. Imagine going through your day feeling anxious and irritable because of a disturbing dream you had the night before. Dissociation or derealization can create a sense of disorientation, confusion, and detachment from reality, leading to increased anxiety and distress. Obsessive dream analysis can become a compulsive behavior, interfering with daily functioning, relationships, and mental health. Think about the time and energy that could be spent on other pursuits, lost to an endless cycle of dream interpretation. It's crucial to recognize these indicators and seek professional support when necessary. Therapists and counselors can provide a safe, supportive, and non-judgmental space to explore disturbing or traumatic dreams. They can offer specialized techniques for managing nightmares, processing trauma, and regulating overwhelming emotions. Seeking professional help can prevent dream analysis from becoming a source of further distress or harm. So, how can we prioritize our mental health and well-being when engaging with our dreams? And what steps can we take to access appropriate support when needed? How will you know when it's time to stop self-analysis and seek help? We've journeyed through the landscape of dreams, exploring the perspectives of Freud and Jung, and confronting the challenges and limitations of dream interpretation. But what are the key takeaways from this exploration, and how can you apply these insights to your own life? Let's summarize. We've seen how dream analysis can offer profound insights and unlock hidden aspects of ourselves. But now that we've understood that dream analysis can involve intense emotions and may sometimes be harmful, what are the ethical responsibilities of the dreamer and the dream interpreter? Because dream work isn't ethically neutral. Even self-analysis involves responsibilities, and it's essential to approach this practice with awareness and care. Let's introduce the concept of ethical dream analysis, highlighting the responsibilities of both the dreamer, who is acting as their own self-analyst, and the interpreter, whether that's a therapist or a guide. What does ethical dream analysis look like? It boils down to several core principles that prioritize safety, respect, and integrity. First, there's the principle of do no harm. This means avoiding interpretations or actions that could cause emotional distress, re-traumatization, or harm to the dreamer or others. What this means is to avoid interpretations that trigger intense anxiety, depression, or traumatic memories. Secondly, we must uphold respect for autonomy, which highlights the dreamer's right to self-determination and the interpreter's duty to respect their choices, values, and boundaries. To put it simply, the dreamer is the final authority on the meaning of their dreams. Another critical factor is maintaining confidentiality. It's essential to protect the dreamer's privacy and refrain from sharing their dreams or personal information without their explicit consent. Think of it as building a circle of trust around the dreamer's vulnerable inner world. Finally, there's avoiding exploitation. Dream analysis should never be used to manipulate, control, or exploit the dreamer in any way. Imagine the damage that could be inflicted if an interpreter abuses their position of trust. Let's consider some specific examples to illustrate these ethical considerations. First, do no harm. Imagine a therapist suggesting a patient leave their spouse based solely on a dream interpretation, rather than guiding the patient to come to that decision themselves through their own reasoning. What would happen if the therapist's interpretation was completely off base? The misinterpretation of a dream symbol could also lead to a destructive or harmful course of action in waking life. Consider an individual who dreams of fire, which they interpret as a sign to burn bridges with people in their life. Acting on this misinterpretation could result in damaged relationships and profound regret. Then, respect for autonomy. What happens when an analyst pushes their interpretations, even when the dreamer states that these interpretations simply do not match their understanding of themselves? An ethical interpreter must respect the dreamer's right to reject an interpretation, even if the interpreter firmly believes it to be accurate. To do otherwise is to invalidate the dreamer's own experience and agency. Next, maintaining confidentiality. What are the ethical implications of sharing dream content in a group setting without obtaining explicit consent from the dreamer? Think about the vulnerability inherent in sharing deeply personal dreams and the potential for harm if that information is disclosed without permission. A therapist must maintain strict confidentiality regarding a client's dreams and personal information, even with family members or other professionals, unless explicit consent is granted. And finally, avoiding exploitation. Consider a therapist encouraging a patient to spend more and more money on dream analysis sessions based on a dream, using the patient's vulnerability for personal gain. This is a clear breach of ethical boundaries. Furthermore, an interpreter must avoid using dream analysis to manipulate, control, or exploit the dreamer in any way, such as for personal gain, sexual gratification, or political advantage. What would happen if an analyst used dream interpretation to push a certain agenda onto the patient? The possibilities for abuse are endless. What are the implications of adhering to these ethical guidelines? Following these guidelines fosters a safe and trusting environment for dream exploration, promoting healing and growth. It can empower dreamers to delve into their unconscious without fear of judgment or harm. These principles also protect dreamers from potential harm, exploitation, and abuse, ensuring that dream analysis is used responsibly and ethically. Upholding ethical standards is essential for maintaining the integrity and credibility of dream analysis as a therapeutic practice. The reputation of dream analysis as a valuable tool for self-discovery depends on it. But how can we ensure that dream analysis is used responsibly and ethically for the benefit of the dreamer and the greater good? How can dreamers protect themselves against unethical interpretations? The responsibilities extend to both the interpreter and the dreamer. Ethical considerations extend beyond the individual dreamer and interpreter. How do cultural beliefs, societal norms, and historical context shape the interpretation and understanding of dreams? What happens when we try to analyze dreams outside of their cultural origin? Let's discuss dreams in cultures and how those cultures may affect the symbology. We've established that dreams are subjective and impacted by our unique personal experiences. But that's not the whole picture. How do cultural beliefs, societal norms, and historical context shape the interpretation and understanding of dreams? While dreams may feel intensely personal, they are also shaped by the world around us, influencing the very symbols and narratives that populate our subconscious. After all, a viewer from a remote tribe in the Amazon rainforest will invariably have different dream experiences than a Wall Street executive. Dreams aren't formed in a vacuum. The cultural tapestry in which we live with its myths, symbols, social values, and historical events deeply influences the content and meaning of our dreams. Cultural myths and symbols populate our dreamscapes, social values influence our dream narratives, and historical context echoes in our dream worlds. Consider the idea of cultural archetypes, shared symbols and motifs specific to certain cultures, which imprint themselves on our unconscious minds. This means that the same dream symbol can have drastically different meanings based on the dreamer's cultural background. Are we truly individuals in our dream world, or are we all just subconsciously playing parts dictated by the culture we grew up in? For example, consider the symbolism of dragons. In Western cultures, dragons are often portrayed as menacing creatures, symbols of chaos and destruction, something to be slayed by a brave knight. Think of St. George and the Dragon, a classic tale of good versus evil. But in Eastern cultures, particularly in China, dragons are revered as benevolent beings, symbols of power, good fortune, and wisdom. They are associated with emperors and are seen as guardians of wealth and prosperity. If someone from a Western background dreams of a dragon, they might interpret it as a threat or a challenge, while someone from an Eastern background might see it as a sign of good luck or a call to embrace their inner power. How drastically would a Jungian analyst from China disagree with a Freudian analyst from Germany about the meaning of this common symbol? Furthermore, a snake in a dream may represent healing and transformation in some cultures, embodying the shedding of old skin and the emergence of new life, while in others, it may symbolize danger, temptation, or deceit, echoing the biblical story of the serpent in the Garden of Eden. What common symbols exist in your dreams, and how might their meanings differ based on your cultural background? Social values and expectations also exert a powerful influence on our dream narratives and emotional content. In cultures that place a high value on individual achievement and material success, dreams about career advancement, financial prosperity, or social recognition may be common, reflecting the pressures and aspirations of that society. The flip side of this, of course, is that dreams about failure, inadequacy, or social rejection may also be more prevalent, reflecting the fear of not measuring up to societal expectations. Conversely, in cultures that emphasize community, cooperation, and spiritual fulfillment, dreams about harmonious relationships, collective endeavors, or spiritual experiences may be more common. How might someone from a collectivist culture interpret a dream about striking out on their own versus someone from an individualistic society? Think about gender roles and social hierarchies. These play out in our dreams, reflecting cultural norms and power dynamics. Dreams about authority figures, social interactions, or family relationships may reveal underlying cultural beliefs about power, status, and gender. What power dynamics are revealed in your dreams, and how do they relate to your cultural background? Even historical events and collective traumas can manifest in our dreams, reflecting shared cultural anxieties and experiences. After a major war or natural disaster, for example, it's common for people to experience dreams related to those events, reflecting the collective trauma and anxiety of the society. Dreams about war, natural disasters, or social unrest can reflect a culture's historical context and collective memory, echoing through generations. Consider, too, how cultural shifts and social movements can influence dream content, reflecting changing values, beliefs, and attitudes. Dreams about gender equality, racial justice, or environmental concerns may reflect contemporary social movements and cultural transformations, showing how social movements affect our dream world. Do historical events echo through generations of dreams, and how do social movements shape the narratives of our subconscious? Therefore, dream interpretation requires cultural sensitivity and an awareness of the dreamer's cultural background. It's essential to consider cultural context when interpreting dream symbols, narratives, and emotional content, recognizing that the same symbol can have different meanings in different cultures. Cultural influences can both enrich and complicate dream interpretation, requiring a nuanced and informed approach. How can we develop a culturally sensitive approach to dream interpretation that respects the diversity of human experience? And how can we avoid imposing our own cultural biases on dream interpretation, which could lead to misinterpretations? If the goal of dream analysis is to understand ourselves, then cultural awareness is critical to avoiding analytical pitfalls. We've explored many factors that can affect dream interpretation, from personal experiences and ethical considerations to cultural influences. But given all these complexities and limitations, how can we approach dream interpretation with humility and a willingness to embrace uncertainty? This is the question that plagues dream analysts, from Freud and Jung to modern-day therapists. After all, the dream world is a murky place. Let's delve into the importance of humility when analyzing dreams. Dream interpretation, as we've seen, is far from an exact science. It's influenced by countless factors, from our individual experiences and cultural backgrounds to ethical considerations and the ever-shifting sands of our subconscious. Given these complexities and the limitations they impose, how can we approach dream interpretation with humility and a willingness to embrace uncertainty? This is perhaps one of the most challenging aspects of dream analysis, because we, as humans, often crave definitive answers, particularly when it comes to understanding ourselves. But the dream world rarely offers such easy certainties. This leads us to the concept of intellectual humility. Intellectual humility is not about lacking confidence or expertise, but rather about recognizing the limits of what we know and being open to new information and perspectives. It's a mindset characterized by a number of key traits. First, it involves acknowledging that dream interpretation is subjective, and there is rarely, if ever, a single correct answer. Second, it requires openness to alternative perspectives, a willingness to consider different interpretations and challenge our own assumptions. Third, it means acknowledging the potential for error, accepting that mistakes are inevitable, and learning from them. Fourth, it necessitates a willingness to say, "I don't know," resisting the urge to force an interpretation when the meaning of a dream remains elusive. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, it involves balancing the ego, understanding that we are not the final authority on our own dreams, and that hubris can be damaging. Intellectual humility is the antithesis of the Dunning-Kruger effect, where individuals with limited knowledge overestimate their abilities, and those with high knowledge underestimate their abilities. It is about striving for accurate self-assessment, and recognizing that in a complex field like dream analysis, we are all perpetual students. Consider how intellectual humility can improve the dream analysis process. Imagine a therapist who acknowledges their own cultural biases and actively seeks to understand the dreamer's cultural background. This therapist is far more likely to arrive at an accurate and helpful interpretation than one who imposes their own cultural lens on the dream. Or consider an individual who is willing to entertain multiple interpretations of a dream symbol, even if they contradict their initial assumptions. This individual is more likely to uncover hidden layers of meaning and gain a deeper understanding of their own subconscious. And what about a dream group participant who respectfully challenges another member's interpretation, offering alternative perspectives without being dogmatic? This creates an environment of collaborative exploration, enriching the experience for everyone involved. Think about the alternative: a therapist who imposes their own beliefs or values on the dreamer, disregarding the dreamer's personal experiences and cultural context. This can lead to misinterpretations, feelings of invalidation, and even harm to the therapeutic relationship. Let's say, for example, a dreamer insists on a Freudian interpretation of their dreams, even when those interpretations make them feel deeply uncomfortable or violated. Imagine that they had a dream where they were naked in public. A Freudian interpretation might suggest repressed sexual desires or exhibitionistic tendencies. But what if the dreamer felt that this interpretation was completely off base, that the dream was actually about vulnerability, exposure, or a fear of judgment? What damage could it cause to force a Freudian interpretation on this dreamer, potentially pathologizing their experience and undermining their sense of self? Conversely, what would a Jungian interpretation offer? Perhaps a journey to uncover one's own self, a shedding of one's skin to reveal one's true nature. Intellectual humility fosters a more collaborative and respectful relationship between the dreamer and the interpreter. It encourages a more nuanced and comprehensive understanding of dream symbolism, integrating multiple perspectives and insights. It promotes self-awareness, critical thinking, and a willingness to challenge one's own assumptions and biases. It reduces the risk of misinterpreting dreams or imposing harmful beliefs on the dreamer. All of these things are critical if the goal of dream analysis is to promote healing, growth, and self-discovery. And how can we cultivate intellectual humility in our own approach to dream analysis? What steps can we take to challenge our own biases and assumptions? These are the questions that must be on our minds as we wade into the murky waters of our subconscious. But even with intellectual humility firmly in place, dream interpretation can still be a challenging and uncertain process. After all, it relies on both objective analysis and subjective intuition, a balance between the cold, hard logic of the conscious mind and the warm, emotional resonance of the unconscious. So how do we balance the need for critical analysis with the importance of trusting our own intuition and inner wisdom when interpreting dreams? Stay with me, because let's now consider the role of intuition and instinct. As valuable as intellectual humility is, and as crucial as it is to interpreting dreams effectively, it only represents one side of the coin. We must also consider that other vital element that is often scoffed at or disregarded in academic and intellectual circles: intuition. After all, the dream world is not a realm of pure logic and reason. It's a landscape of emotions, symbols, and hidden meanings, one that often speaks to us in ways that defy conscious understanding. So how do we balance the need for critical analysis with the importance of trusting our own intuition and inner wisdom when interpreting dreams? Intuition, in the context of dream analysis, can be defined as the ability to understand or know something without conscious reasoning or logical proof. It's that gut feeling, that sense of knowing that arises spontaneously, often before we can articulate why. Now, It's important to understand that intuition isn't some mystical force or a free pass to believe whatever we want. It's not about relying on blind faith or wishful thinking. Rather, it's a form of pattern recognition based on past experiences, emotional intelligence, and unconscious associations. Think of it as your subconscious mind making connections that your conscious mind hasn't yet processed. It is a connection to a kind of collective unconscious, in that it can occasionally tap into universal wisdom and archetypal knowledge. What does this all mean? In essence, intuition is a valuable tool for navigating the complexities of the dream world, but like any tool, it has its limits. We must also be wary that intuition is not a free pass to ignore critical reasoning, or to believe whatever we wish is true. How does intuition manifest in dream interpretation? Consider this. An individual may intuitively recognize that a specific dream symbol, such as a childhood home, represents a particular emotional state or relationship, even if they cannot logically explain why. Perhaps they dream of their childhood home, and a wave of sadness washes over them upon waking, even though the dream itself wasn't explicitly sad. What makes the dreamer feel this way? Maybe the house represents a time of innocence, now lost, or a family dynamic that was loving on the surface but deeply dysfunctional underneath. The dreamer's intuition picks up on these nuances, these unspoken truths, even if their conscious mind hasn't fully processed them. Or take the example of a dream analyst working with a patient. The analyst might have a hunch about the meaning of a particular symbol, a sense that it resonates with the patient's unconscious in a specific way. This hunch, this intuitive feeling, might lead the analyst to ask targeted questions, which then unearth repressed memories or unresolved conflicts that shed light on the dream's meaning. This intuitive sense might defy logic, but prove to be invaluable for interpreting the dream. But how can the dreamer tell if the meaning is archetypal or merely personal? It may be that the therapist knows a specific answer, but is unable to explain how. The importance of balancing critical analysis with intuition in dream interpretation cannot be overstated. Intuition can enhance and enrich the dream analysis process, providing valuable insights that may not be accessible through logical reasoning alone. It can help us to connect with the emotional undertones of a dream, to identify personal symbolism, and to access archetypal meanings. But it should never be used as a substitute for critical thinking. Effective dream interpretation requires a delicate balance of both logical and emotional intelligence, integrating objective analysis with subjective intuition. How can we cultivate our intuition and learn to trust our inner wisdom without abandoning our critical faculties? We must remember that while rational thought is important, it isn't everything, and that feelings are data as well. A caution against over-reliance on intuition must be made, because it can lead to biased interpretations. Intuition is important, but magical thinking is a hindrance. As we continue, remember that integrating intuition into dream analysis can be a challenging endeavor. How do we know when to trust our intuition, and how can we distinguish between genuine insight and wishful thinking or self-deception? Stay with me, because we'll discuss how to determine if an interpretation is correct, even when it defies all logic. But how do we know when to trust our intuition, and how can we distinguish between genuine insight and wishful thinking or self-deception? If the dream world defies logic, how can we possibly find any solid ground on which to base our interpretations? This brings us to a critical challenge in dream analysis, balancing the subjective nature of intuition with the need for some form of external validation. How do we determine if a dream interpretation is correct, or at least valid and useful for our own personal growth? Dream analysis is neither a completely objective science nor a realm where anything goes. Correctness in dream interpretation isn't about uncovering some absolute universal truth. Instead, It's about finding interpretations that resonate with us personally, create a coherent narrative within our lives, and ultimately lead to positive changes in our thoughts, feelings, or behaviors. Think of it as calibrating your inner compass, using a combination of intuition, emotional awareness, and critical reasoning to navigate the complex landscape of your unconscious mind. How do we do this? There are three key elements to consider: emotional resonance, narrative coherence, and behavioral validation. First, there's emotional resonance. Does the interpretation feel right? Does it align with your emotions and experiences? Imagine you have a dream about being trapped in a cage. You interpret this as representing feelings of restriction in your current job. Now, ask yourself, does this interpretation resonate with your emotions and experiences? Does it evoke a sense of relief, understanding, or empowerment? Or does it leave you feeling cold and disconnected? If the interpretation feels emotionally flat, it may not be the right one. However, we must also be wary of forcing resonance through confirmation bias, latching onto an interpretation simply because it confirms what we already believe to be true. What are the dangers of this? Consider a scenario where a patient dreams of a fox, which the analyst immediately connects to trickery, an archetypal association. The analyst shares this interpretation, and the patient has an immediate negative reaction. What should the analyst do now? Should they push forward with their interpretation, or acknowledge the patient's reaction and re-evaluate their approach? What if the patient has an entirely different association with the fox, perhaps one of cleverness or playfulness? Next, we have narrative coherence. Does the interpretation create a coherent narrative that connects different dream elements and makes sense within the context of your life? Imagine you have a dream about a broken clock, a lost key, and a flooded house. You interpret this as representing a fear of losing control in your life. Does this interpretation connect the different dream elements into a coherent narrative? Does it explain why the clock is broken, the key is lost, and the house is flooded? Does it create a story? A strong interpretation will weave together the different threads of the dream, creating a meaningful and understandable narrative. If the interpretation feels fragmented or disjointed, it may not be the most accurate one. It is possible that the broken clock represents the feeling that time is running out. The lost key could represent the dreamer's feeling of being locked out from something valuable, and the flooded house may represent being overwhelmed by emotions. However, a good interpretation will combine all of these possibilities into a single, coherent story. Finally, we have behavioral validation. Does the interpretation lead to positive changes in your thoughts, feelings, or behaviors in waking life? Suppose you have a dream about confronting a bully, and you interpret this as representing a need to assert yourself more in your relationships. Does this interpretation lead to positive changes in your behavior? Do you start setting boundaries, expressing your needs, or standing up for yourself? Does the change have any tangible effect? Maybe you begin to notice that people treat you with more respect, or that you feel more confident in social situations. If the interpretation leads to positive changes in your life, it is likely a valid one. However, it's important to note that not all interpretations will lead to immediate or dramatic changes. Sometimes, the impact is more subtle and gradual, unfolding over time as you continue to reflect on the dream's meaning. These techniques allow you to critically evaluate your dream interpretations, moving beyond wishful thinking or self-deception. Instead of blindly accepting any interpretation that comes to mind, you can use these criteria to assess its validity and relevance. Think about it. This helps you maintain agency over your interpretations, ensuring that they are aligned with your own values, goals, and experiences. Dream interpretation should be an iterative process, constantly refined and adjusted based on new insights and experiences. What makes this different from confirmation bias, where we seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs. The key difference is that these calibration techniques encourage you to be open to new possibilities, to challenge your assumptions, and to consider alternative interpretations. But are some interpretations simply wrong? Perhaps an interpretation that is completely detached from reality or that promotes harmful behaviors could be considered wrong. The ultimate goal of dream interpretation is not to find definitive answers, but to promote self-awareness, personal growth, and a deeper understanding of the human psyche. What is the best end result of dream analysis? Ideally, it should lead to a greater sense of self-acceptance, emotional resilience, and a more fulfilling life. How does this relate to the idea of dream work, the process of actively engaging with your dreams to unlock their hidden meanings? Even with careful calibration, dream interpretation can be a complex and challenging process, requiring ongoing self-reflection and a willingness to embrace ambiguity. But here's the twist. What are the long-term benefits of consistent dream engagement and analysis? Let's bring this all together and zoom out to consider the larger implications. Because what we'll discover next is the transformative potential of dream work for personal growth, healing, and self-discovery. Even with careful calibration and consistent dream engagement, can we be certain that we're capturing the complete picture? Or are there blind spots that even the best dream work can't illuminate? What if biases, cultural norms, or a simple misunderstanding of the dreamer's situation subtly skews our analysis? The integration of Freudian and Jungian perspectives offers more comprehensive tools, to be sure. But does this integration eliminate all limitations or guarantee accuracy? Despite their combined strengths, do Freud and Jung's theories still have limitations, and how do those limitations affect analysis? We're about to explore the edges of these theories, how those edges can cut, and how they can be smoothed. Every theory, no matter how insightful, has its limitations. Even an integrated approach to dream analysis is not immune. Some of these limitations are inherent in the frameworks of Freud and Jung themselves, while others arise from the process of applying those theories. The inherent human tendency toward subjectivity, of course, is a main driver of these interpretive limitations. To better navigate this complex terrain, let's break this down into two parts: theory limitations, which are the limitations inherent in the frameworks of Freud and Jung, and practical application limitations, those that arise in the process of applying the theories. Understanding this crucial difference can help us approach dream analysis with both enthusiasm and a healthy dose of skepticism. Let's begin by examining Freud's limitations, starting with his theory. A significant point of criticism is his overemphasis on sexual repression. Freud often interpreted nearly every dream symbol as having a sexual meaning, even when other interpretations were possible, potentially causing him to overlook other significant factors or meanings. Think about the symbol of a train, for instance. In a strictly Freudian interpretation, a train might represent sexual intercourse. However, might the train also represent a journey through life, a transition from one stage to another, or a longing for adventure? What other possibilities might the train represent? By fixating on sexual interpretations, Freud risked reducing the richness and complexity of the dream to a single, potentially inaccurate, dimension. How might this narrow focus impact the person undergoing the dream analysis? This leads to a significant application limitation, the potential to pathologize normal experiences. Modern psychology increasingly challenges Freud's views on childhood trauma, particularly the idea that many psychological issues stem from repressed sexual abuse. While acknowledging the reality of childhood trauma, there is a growing concern that broadly interpreting childhood events through a trauma lens can actually do harm. Some psychologists argue that pathologizing normal childhood experiences, such as sibling rivalry or minor conflicts with parents, can create unnecessary distress and even lead to false memories. Consider a scenario where a therapist, heavily influenced by Freudian theory, interprets a client's childhood memory of being scolded by a parent as evidence of repressed trauma. Could this interpretation, even if well-intentioned, inadvertently create a sense of victimhood or damage the parent-child relationship? What could a more balanced approach look like? Now, let's shift our focus to Jung and explore the limitations within his framework. A primary challenge lies in the abstractness of archetypes. Jung posited that archetypes are universal, inborn patterns of behavior and imagery. However, how these archetypes manifest in dreams can vary significantly from individual to individual, and from culture to culture, leading to inconsistent interpretations. Take the archetype of the shadow, for example. For one person, the shadow might appear as a menacing figure representing repressed anger or aggression. For another, it might manifest as a mischievous trickster embodying untapped creativity or spontaneity. In each case, the shadow has significantly different characteristics. How might cultural differences also play a role in interpreting archetypes? In some cultures, the shadow might be viewed as an entirely negative force, while in others, it might be seen as a necessary component of wholeness. This abstractness leads to another application limitation: subjective interpretation and a lack of scientific testability. Jungian analysis often relies heavily on the analyst's intuition and personal understanding of symbolism, which can lead to conflicting interpretations of the same dream. Unlike Freudian theory, which at least attempts to ground interpretations in specific drives and desires, Jungian analysis can sometimes feel too open-ended and difficult to validate. Imagine two Jungian analysts presented with the same dream featuring a snake. One analyst might interpret the snake as representing transformation and healing, connecting it to the symbolism of the caduceus. The other analyst might interpret the snake as representing deception and temptation, linking it to the biblical story of Adam and Eve. Which interpretation is correct? Or can both interpretations coexist, depending on the dreamer's personal context and associations? Ultimately, it is difficult to prove either interpretation wrong in a definitive, scientific sense, which makes it challenging to assess the validity of Jungian analysis. Another practical limitation: Jungian theory can be difficult to utilize for those who are unaccustomed to abstract thought, as many of Jung's concepts are very difficult to understand. Awareness of these limitations is crucial for approaching dream analysis with nuance and critical thinking. It's vitally important to avoid rigid adherence to any one theoretical framework, and instead remain open to multiple perspectives, integrating both Jungian and Freudian lenses. By acknowledging the potential pitfalls and biases inherent in each approach, we can foster a more ethical and responsible approach to dream interpretation, preventing potential harm or misinterpretation. Think about it. A poorly considered dream interpretation could lead to unnecessary anxiety, self-doubt, or even distorted perceptions of reality. If an analyst misinterprets a dream as indicating repressed trauma, the patient might begin a journey of trauma recovery unnecessarily. So how can we navigate the inherent limitations of dream theory to make interpretations more grounded and valid? Due to these limitations, dream analysis is rarely clear-cut, and it is often, frankly, muddy. But what can we do when Freud and Jung seem to directly contradict each other, and interpretations clash? What happens when we're faced with seemingly irreconcilable differences in their approaches? We'll tackle conflicting ideas next, as we explore what to do when dream interpretation goes awry. Due to these limitations, dream analysis is rarely clear-cut, and it is often, frankly, muddy. But what can we do when Freud and Jung seem to directly contradict each other, and interpretations clash? What happens when we're faced with seemingly irreconcilable differences in their approaches? Now, let's delve into a common challenge. Freud and Jung's interpretations often clash, leading to confusion and uncertainty. If both Freud and Jung provide insightful takes on the same dream but point in completely different directions, what are we to do? What can we do when Freud and Jung seem to directly contradict each other and interpretations clash? Well, here's the truth. You need to prioritize. Conflicting interpretations are not only common, but inevitable, given Freud and Jung's different perspectives and assumptions. Where Freud sees repressed sexual desires, Jung might see a connection to primal instincts. Where Freud sees personal history, Jung sees the collective unconscious. This is an area where nuance is most crucial, since people will instinctively want a clear answer, and dream interpretation rarely provides one. When conflict arises, it's important to have a framework for resolving these conflicts. First, prioritize the dreamer's experience. After all, it's their dream. The dreamer's personal associations, feelings, and intuition should be the primary guide. Do the interpretations resonate with them? Which interpretation feels more true? Second, identify the underlying theme. Look for the common thread or core issue that both interpretations are addressing, even if they use different language or symbolism. What commonality exists? Does the emotional root have overlap? Third, consider the dreamer's stage of life. Recognize that different interpretations may be more relevant at different stages of life or during different psychological challenges. What stage of life is the dreamer in? What has their journey been like? This is a great starting point when faced with conflicting interpretations. Let's consider some specific examples to illustrate how to resolve conflicting interpretations. Imagine someone has a dream of a snake. A Freudian interpretation might focus on repressed sexual desires, viewing the snake as a phallic symbol, or perhaps a fear of intimacy, with arousal experienced as dread. A Jungian interpretation, on the other hand, might see the snake as representing transformation, healing, or a connection to primal instincts, viewing healing and transformation as opportunity. So how do we resolve this interpretive divergence? If the dreamer associates snakes with fear and anxiety, the Freudian interpretation may be more relevant. But if the dreamer associates snakes with healing or wisdom, the Jungian interpretation may be more appropriate. What is the dreamer's cultural and personal background with snakes? Someone who grew up in a place with dangerous snakes may instinctually attach a Freudian fear to any snake symbol, regardless of the snake's role in the dream. Now, consider a dream of a forest. A Freudian interpretation might view it as a dark and dangerous place that the dreamer must escape, which may reflect the dreamer running from their subconscious and repressed memories. A Jungian interpretation might see it as a maternal symbol for the self, a place of rebirth, or a connection to nature. If the dreamer has repressed memories they are running from, the Freudian interpretation may be more applicable. However, if the dreamer is in touch with nature or is seeking rebirth or maternal connection, the Jungian interpretation may be more appropriate. What if neither feels right? Conflicting interpretations can actually offer valuable insights into the dreamer's psyche, even if they are not easily reconciled. The conflict itself may reveal something. Dream interpretation is not about finding the right answer, but about exploring different possibilities and expanding self-awareness. The ability to navigate conflicting interpretations demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of dream analysis and a commitment to personal growth. But what if the dreamer cannot tell which interpretation feels right? What if they are biased toward a certain interpretation because it sounds better or is more appealing to their ego? What if the true interpretation is the one that the dreamer likes the least? This is a distinct possibility, and it's important to consider because it will happen to everyone from time to time. Here's something else to consider. What if the dreamer is so accustomed to repressing certain emotions or desires that they are genuinely unaware of them? In such cases, both the Freudian and Jungian interpretations might feel wrong initially because they challenge the dreamer's self-image. The most uncomfortable interpretation may be the most accurate. Moreover, what if you're working with someone who's incredibly stubborn or biased? How can we address the potential for resistance or defensiveness when an interpretation challenges their self-perception? This is where the role of the interpreter becomes vitally important. It's up to the interpreter to gently guide the dreamer toward a deeper understanding of themselves, even if it's painful. So how can we embrace the tension of conflicting interpretations and use it as a catalyst for deeper self-exploration? By embracing the tension, by recognizing that dreams are multi-layered, and by refusing to settle for easy answers, we can unlock profound insights into the human psyche. As we continue to explore our dreams, are we destined to interpret them alone? What happens when we add other people into the process of dream analysis? Now that we've tackled one dream, how do we deal with a series of dreams that seem to contradict each other? After all, even when we effectively tackle the individual interpretations of a dream, we must understand that dreams come in a series. As we reach the end of our exploration of dream analysis, let's bring together the contrasting perspectives of Freud and Jung, recognizing the value of their insights and their limitations. We've journeyed through the Freudian landscape of repressed desires and the Jungian realm of collective archetypes, gaining tools to unlock the hidden language of our dreams. The key takeaway is that you now possess a framework for understanding your dreams and integrating these perspectives to promote greater self-awareness. Remember the initial question of whether dreams hold deeper meaning. We've seen how Freud and Jung answered that question in different ways, each offering a unique lens through which to view the dream world. These aren't simple answers, but different perspectives on one complex phenomenon. The most profound insight is that dream interpretation is not about finding definitive answers or adhering to rigid rules, but about embarking on a deeply personal and subjective journey of self-discovery. By bringing together Freudian and Jungian techniques, viewers can decide what works best for their own situations and emotional states. This journey extends far beyond the realm of sleep, impacting our relationships, our understanding of ourselves, and our ability to live more authentically. It contributes to our never-ending effort to understand the human condition. This applies to the individual as well as to society as a whole. After all, the long-term goal of dream analysis is to better understand oneself. Now, here's an ethical implication. It is important to take extreme care when self-analyzing and applying interpretations in real life to avoid causing harm to yourself or others. Consider that Freud and Jung themselves took years, if not decades, to fully understand their theories, and their insights were constantly in flux. It is tempting to interpret a friend's dream and tell them what it means, but this is extremely dangerous. Dream analysis is meant to be an extremely personal journey, and only the dreamer can know what a dream truly means. Now that you have the tools, it is up to you to apply them, to determine for yourself the best path forward. Dream analysis can be a lifelong pursuit, one that brings greater self-awareness, but only if you are careful and considerate. The journey forward may be challenging, but it is also filled with the potential for profound insights, healing, and transformation. Know that you are not alone. There is no truly right way or wrong way to engage with your dreams, and the benefits are available to anyone. The path to understanding requires confronting our personal experiences and our cultural framework. Share your dream experiences in the comments below, and let's continue this conversation together. What has this video made you understand about your own dreams? What are some synchronicities you've noticed in your waking life that relate to your dreams? As you drift off to sleep tonight, Remember that your dreams are waiting to whisper their secrets. Listen closely, explore fearlessly, and embrace the journey of self-discovery that awaits. Thank you for watching. In our next video, we'll be exploring other methods for understanding the unconscious. Join us then.